Thanks for tuning into another Dolphins podcast after 3 straight losses. Most recently, a 31-12 loss to the Titans on Monday Night Football. Josh Houtz, I don't think the Dolphins are going to the Snooper Bowl.
No Snooper Bowl. We should have known as soon as you suggested Snooper Bowl that it was just gonna be egg all over our face. But it's just crazy, Jake. For as bad as it's been to be a Dolphins fan, I feel like these last few weeks might be some of the lowest points as a Dolphins fan. So I was gonna say I'm excited to come on here and talk about this, but I'm not. I'm just happy to be able to see your smiling face and to hopefully talk through whatever the hell it was we saw once again on Primetime Football.
That's the slogan of the show today. It's brought to you by some stats, some PFF, some quotes from Mike McDaniel saying that Stu Huntley is going to start next week for the Dolphins. But mostly, this show is brought to you by two miserable fans who have had to do this nonsense for way too long and put up with this crap. 31-12, and Joshua Houtz, this game started in such a great manner for the Dolphins. 0-0 was the end of the first quarter, but there were some twists and turns where I honestly thought that this Miami Dolphins team was going to turn the corner. Emmanuel Ogbah catches an interception between his thighs. He had his thighs on the prize from the start. At that point, dude, I started typing, is this going to be the first Miami Dolphins lead of the 2024 season? Can you believe we are in week 4 of the year and we are talking about the first lead? You have one of the most explosive offenses in the entire NFL. And Josh, your star player, we can argue who if it was a bad throw. To see Tyreek Hill not dive at the ball, to not chase after the ball when Snoop Huntley leads him a little too far on a lateral, which is an insane thing to say out loud. God, man, this thing just spun out of control, and I want to open the floor to you before I spin out of control.
I mean, I think at this point, we're both just going to spin out of control because, like you mentioned, there was a little bit of hope. Emmanuel Ogbah dropped back into coverage. It was a well-designed play. I think they brought the blitz off the other side. Ogbah drops back, gets a pick, but with his thighs, I think you called it I don't know what you said, but you said something about him using his thighs very nicely. And then I think Snoop Huntley came out and he had a very nice pass, 14 yards strike. And I'm like, oh, damn, okay. What were you going to say?
That was the most Dolphins play ever because the snap almost went flying by Snoop Huntley's head. He had to go up and volleyball tap it up to himself in order to catch it and throw it to it. So it was the most prime Dolphins offense play where you really thought, oh, we're back.
Yeah, and we were, in fact, not back, the narrator would say. I mean, it was just then I joked a bunch of Nick cuts by 1,000 Nick Folk field goals, and that's what it was. They went up 6-0, and again, the Dolphins just could not come back from that. It's just, baffling, like you said. I mean, it looked like they were just completely unprepared, and we knew, Snoop Huntley, okay, you were only here 2 weeks. We know what you're going out there, what we're dealing with. We might use a lot of, his mobility and things like that, but right before the game, Mike McDaniel's not going to change his game plan. And I don't know if he did or not, but I don't know that that's the right way to approach this one. So I don't really think we can fault Snoop Huntley too much because, again, 2 weeks. But I don't know what I was expecting. Shame on me if I expected more, but that was as disappointing as it felt being a Dolphins fan for a long time. And, I mean, it just feels like every week we just continue to move the goalposts, right?
In the wrong direction, too. That's the worst part. We're supposed to be talking about, oh, well, Miami's only killing the bad teams, right? Because that's what the Tennessee Titans were. Josh, I kind of pictured this team as Miami going up to a gas station and just having a lit match. Can you run away from that gas station fast enough? Because the Titans, some explosive plays. They had that on Monday Night Football. Tony Pollard had a big run. There were situations that Miami's defense, I think, deserves a bunch of credit from start to finish. The fact that this team hasn't been able to pin their ears back with the lead and keep Miami in games is one thing. But this Titans offense is either going to make big plays or they're going to turn the ball over. And Josh, I thought we saw that explosion on the first drive. But for the Dolphins, they just couldn't find answers. And I wanted to ask you about that because you brought up the fact, and I think it was Dan Orlovsky who started this. In his meeting with Tyler Huntley this week, he revealed that the Dolphins do not intend on changing the offensive game plan. What do you think that means when it goes through your head? Do you see that as it's going to be the Tua offense? Because think about it, Josh. A couple of weeks ago, we saw the Tua offense. He was playing handball in the backfield. He was juggling the ball in 4 different directions before it was just a little handoff. I didn't see Huntley doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe I'm a little bit too upset about that. Oh, he's going to run the exact same stuff as Tua. Like, we know the offense was dumbed down to one extent or another. I guess to me, it was just their way of saying, we're not going to be scared to throw the football. And based on some of those throws, I mean, I don't know. I had put a video on YouTube. It got a ton of views, just every drop back from Tyler Huntley. But none of those throws looked anything like what we saw last night. I mean, there were some deep balls that looked absolutely, and I mean, I'm a 38-year-old dad, and I mean, I admit that I have a Chad Pennington noodled arm after, like 30 yards, but some of those balls were bad, man. Right. So I don't know what I expected from Snoop Huntley. I don't think it's fair to, necessarily put all the blame on him, but whatever they did, man, whatever they did, whether it was come out there and try to execute similar to when Tua was out there, they got to go back to the drawing board and have a whole new game plan if they want to be able to beat the New England Patriots, who, let's be honest, man, it's Jacoby Brisket revenge game written all over it.
I thought it was interesting, Josh, and I might be going way too Pepe Sylvia with this. McDaniel brought up, I think, twice this week how the offense changed when RG3 came into Washington, and it was him taking over the show. And it wasn't a whole new Kyle Shanahan offense. It was what they did is they took their system and they figured out a way to use it where it'd be a mobile quarterback. And that's kind of what I thought the Dolphins meant, or, this report that the Dolphins aren't going to change their offense. It's going to be the same scheme. It's going to be the same idea, but we're going to do it in a way where maybe Tyreek Hill's running 5 yards farther down the field, so there's more time for him to get open, and then Snoop Huntley can still underthrow him. No, I digress. But what I thought there were opportunities. I think that there were situations where Tyler Huntley had some misses. We saw Tyreek Hill with the fumble. One of your highest paid players isn't going to jump on the football. That's insane to me. Jalen Waddle, he had a drop on a play, Josh, that I thought kind of looked like that Packers game in 2022 where he was just crossing over the middle and he cut up field, took it to the house, and everyone realized Jalen Waddle's really fast. But there were also so many pre-snap penalties. There were also so many other issues, whether it's offensive linemen just missing blocks, whether it's running to the right side on a 4th and 1 after wasting your challenge, running to the side on 4th and 1 when you have Alec Ingold running outside, you have your running back running outside when you could just try to get up the middle for the 1 yard, and all of a sudden that play gets blown up in the backfield. There were just so many different things going wrong here where I think we're okay with Tyler Huntley going 14 for 22 for 96 yards. What we can't be okay with is that combined with a league most 20 pre-snap penalties, that combined with Tyreek Hill being the most dramatic human being ever on the sideline, that combined with some of the most confusing play calling ever. It's all these things built up that in year 3, Josh, all 3 shouldn't be happening. You should be able to confidently enter these games knowing that the one issue is going to be, all right, Tyler Huntley is going to make some dumb throws and we got to make up for that. And that's not what the issue is.
Yeah, and you're right. It is more of a total team shit show, right? It's no one's really, can avoid the blame. I mean, it has been just absolute disarray. So I'm just wondering where they go from here, Jake, because I mean, I'm sitting here trying to think of what the next step is. And, it's been going through my head all day. What do you do? I mean, we fired Chris Greer, I think 3 years ago on a podcast. I mean, I'm not even worried about Chris Greer at this point because I mean, I don't even know who those GM candidates are. I don't even know who in the heart of heart, I would even look towards. So right now we're just looking at somehow salvaging this season, right? I mean, that's what all the Dolphins care about right now. And if they're going to trust in Snoop Huntley and this Mike McDaniel offense, it's going to be bad days, man.
So, Josh, from here, I want to go into choose your own adventure. I have 3 pathways. We have the offense, we have the defense, and the third category is just called general suck. Just general suck about this team. Now, I know what people at home are thinking. General suck could also mean Miami's special teams unit when you consider Jake Bailey's inability to punt, when you consider Duke Riley wanting to touch the one football you never ever want to touch. But that's just entire Dolphins, not just special teams that generally sucks. So what are the 3, Josh? Where would you like to go first?
Offense was one of them. Can we go with the offense?
Yeah, so Josh, one of the first surprises we saw entering this game was that Patrick Paul would be starting for the Dolphins. After last week's performance in Seattle, Kendall Lamb played about 40 snaps. He didn't allow pressure. He went over to right tackle for a play. He was fine over there. Slid back over to left tackle. Perfectly cool. I was a bit surprised to see someone like Patrick Paul stepping in, but hey, your second round rookie, let's get him in there. You see JC Latham have a wonderful game for the Titans. We won't talk about Devondre Sweat being the number 1 rated defensive tackle according to Pro Football Focus. God forbid your rookies help out on the field. But Josh, what do you think of Patrick Paul's performance?
Yeah, without getting too much into it, I mean, I have not, I guess abused myself enough to go back and watch the tape yet. But based on what we
Smart.
saw yesterday, and I think I even saw a Pro Football Focus stat going around showing that he played pretty well, allowed I think 1 quarterback hit, I believe maybe a sack. But overall, I mean, again, we thought it was going to be the Kendall Lamb show, right? We thought this was going to be Kendall Lamb. We thought this was why I got paid that, I don't want to say that contract, but that's why we brought him back to be Teron Armstead's, safety blanket. But they saw enough in Patrick Paul to throw him out there against, they didn't have Jeffrey Simmons, but that was still a pretty good Tennessee Titans front. So I thought we saw, I guess I saw him exceed expectations because I don't know that I had the highest of expectations. And again, if they needed him to go out there and start, I mean, I feel like after what he did, you can only think that he's going to get better from here. And you got to feel pretty damn good about that pick. But I'm all about just trashing on Chris Grier. So we don't even have to give him credit for the Patrick Paul pick.
See, Chris Grier for right now, Josh, shouldn't be even in part. Like seeing him hiding in the corner of that box that up in Hard Rock Stadium, that was the most like depressing, just like sad, like hiding in a corner. Like all I could just think about him is him chuckling about the offensive line, where it's just all thrown right back in your face. Like, could you imagine you just hear those boos and all this money? You're just big ass smiles, signing all these checks. Here you go, Tua. Here you go, Tyreek, Mike McDaniel. Here you go, and then you get the boos. Like that's. Oh.
Do you think he turned them in the press box? You think they're booing me? Something like that. He hits him with a laugh. And I did find it funny. He had that same damn hat on, this beautiful suit, but he's still sitting there hiding. He has his damn Chris Grier ball cap on.
You know what, Josh? We're more worried about wins than he is. That's kind of what it's been boiled down to. It's kind of where we're at with the Chris Grier experience.
I was going to say adversity is opportunity, too. You have to always throw those cliches out there.
The most cliche Dolphins thing to happen in this game, Josh, what was it, 5 minutes before kickoff? Dolphins tweet out, Jeff Wilson injures his knee in pregame warmups. He is questionable to return. Josh, Jeff Wilson, if you're spying on the sidelines, he was suited up. He only played 2 snaps, and that led to Miami's rushing attack being led by Huntley, who had 40 yards on 8 carries. Jalen Wright, 9 carries and 32 yards. And then Devon Achane, 10 carries, 15 yards with a long of 5. Talk about a roller coaster, dude.
Yeah, and we were just sitting here getting ready to crown Devon Achane as this like unstoppable force, right? Because he was. I mean, he was a fantasy god. I know most of us probably had him. Yeah, I know the pain, but I think what I liked the most out of this was we did get to see Jalen Wright get more involved. I mean, it sucks it had to come at the expense of Jeff Wilson. You kind of wish, a week prior, maybe, when he had 2 nice carries, they would have kept on him. But we saw him get a little bit more involved in this one. I liked what I saw there. And then Huntley, I mean, some of those runs, I mean, there were a couple designed. I think I would have liked to see more design runs out of that. But the fact that he could extend the plays and get some of those first downs when, Tua Tagovailoa, Skylar Thompson might not have been able to, it was nice to at least see them commit to it. But I don't know that this was necessarily the game where you can go out there and just win by pounding the rock. Not when you have the Titans playing at least as good as I'm still mad that we lost to a Mason Rudolph-led team in 2024. I can't believe that is their backup. And that's just a perfect example of the Dolphins shit situation, right? At the quarterback situation. They could throw anybody out there, even Mason Rudolph, and they could somehow, manage the game.
This is like the Brock Purdy game, but like 10 times worse. Like I didn't think that was really possible. Like the fact that you're like, oh, you never want to see injuries, but when you see that Jimmy G goes down, and you're like, the 7th round rookie's coming in? The 7th round rookie? Like the San Francisco 49ers, we're going to beat them? Josh, it was the same experience here where you're like, oh, Mason Rudolph's coming in. Then you're like, oh, this isn't the guy who's just throwing interceptions left and right. And that just adds to the frustration, Josh. Kevin O'Connell lost his starting quarterback, and the Vikings are 4-0 with Sam Darnold. Matt LaFleur lost Jordan Love for 2 games. Packers went 2-0 with Malik Willis, a guy they just recently traded for, like right before the season. By the way, they beat this very Titans team that entering week 4 was one of the worst teams in the entire NFL. Antonio Pierce last week called his entire team out for making business decisions. And then they beat the Cleveland Browns 20-16 without Devontae Adams, without Max Crosby. We see the Rams still putting up a fight with all their issues. And Josh, We have the Miami Dolphins, who in the first half of football, 21 of 61 plays went for 0 or negative yards. It's insane. Year 3.
I mean, I don't know what you might say to that. That's so Dolphins. That's just the epitome of just where we're at right now, and it's just hard to. It's a hard pill to swallow again when we knew things were gonna turn to shit once Tua Tagovailoa went down, but you expected Mike McDaniel to at least be able to do enough to get enough out of this offense. I mean, what are they averaging? 11.5 points per game or something like that. I mean, this is a team that we were sitting here, comparing to the greatest show on turf and things like that just a few years ago, and big games aside, they're just nowhere to be found. I mean, you talked about the Tyreek Hill thing earlier. You have to be upset with him for dropping that pass, and then, like you said, not even jumping on it. Is it the way the ball spins out of a righty's hand? Like, that's the only excuse I could possibly come up with for that. And then just to have him on the sideline throwing a tantrum. I mean, I feel like we're going to have more news come out on that, but it just seems like everything that is the Dolphins, whether it's the stats, whether it's the product on the field, it just feels like we're in a never-ending loop, man. Like, you could have been in a coma and woke up, and the Dolphins would have still have not moved from the standings.
It was just recently announced, today being Tuesday, that Snoop Tyler Huntley will make his second straight start for the Miami Dolphins. Josh, little continuity, will that do the trick for Miami, or would you still be kicking and screaming for Skylar Thompson to come back in?
Yeah, I don't know where I'm at this point. I mean, I felt like I was all about Snoop Huntley, like, let's just go ride the Snoop Huntley train, but I can see why you might want someone that's a little bit more experienced with the offense. But that said, I think at this point you need to have that extra layer to the offense, the ability to extend plays and make the defense game plan for that with a Snoop Huntley. That I think that's the reason they'll move forward with that. But I don't know, man. I just can't wait. Tua's gonna be coming back soon, right? Isn't that what we're just waiting and waiting for? Like, what, 3 more weeks? We getting closer?
3 more weeks, and that includes a bye week. Snoop Huntley last week, 14 for 22, 96 yards. Last week being last night. He was sacked only twice, Josh, compared to Skyler, who was sacked 5 times just a week ago. He added 8 carries for 40 yards on the ground, including a touchdown, a long of 20. Overall, it was kind of the funnel it to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill show. I think I'm okay with this. I think a little bit of continuity here would do the Dolphins a lot of good. I think trying to just hop between these quarterbacks looking for any type of answers isn't going to do the trick. I think another thing we're noticing is that it might be the same offense, but I don't know if it's just how these quarterbacks are coached or what they're trying to figure out. It does seem like Tyler Huntley, he's not going to try to throw, like, no quarterback's trying to throw an interception. But what I'm trying to get at is he didn't throw an interception. We didn't see Skylar Thompson throwing interceptions. So I feel like the Miami Dolphins quarterbacks are going to be playing it safe. And hopefully, man, the offensive line can hold up a little better with just getting blown up the middle, because I think Huntley also had a couple opportunities to run that he necessarily couldn't take advantage of. But yeah, man, I think the fact that we're talking about somebody who flied the Pro Bowl honor all the way off into the corner, when we consider that this is somebody who is just learning the system, he's been here for just a couple of weeks, I think we saw enough to give him another shot.
Yeah, and at this point, I mean, what do you have to lose, right? You're what, 1-3? I mean, I feel like, again, we talked about it. We're starting to teeter now where it might be, you're starting to say, okay, it might be better to tank, the things that sort of speak, but I'm not ready to throw in the white flag, not yet. I'm excited. I can't say I'm excited, but I'm intrigued to see what Tyler Huntley can do with another week with, those first team reps. I mean, you saw Boldinger's breakdown, right? You saw Tyreek Hill streaking open. Maybe next week we're seeing them connect on those plays and things like that. So it's going to be a tough matchup against the Patriots. I mean, I think after this one, my expectations are low AF, but we got to enjoy every weekend like it's our last for this team, because again, every time that it goes past, I mean, we're sitting here and we're just like, oh man, I want the Dolphins back. And then they come and they do it again and again, Jake.
Just go away again. I don't want you to come back. But at the same time, man, like, think about those 2 passes to Tyreek, whether it's the underthrow or the overthrow, like, that changes the game. Like, that I think is one of the most frustrating parts about this Miami Dolphins experience. Like, 15 points over the last 2 weeks. It took them, I think, 31 drives between touchdowns, but when Tyler Huntley ran it in from, I think, inside the 10-yard line. That's the most frustrating part about this entire experience, that you don't have, like, go back to week 1 when we were crowning the Dolphins for being a team that could score touchdowns. That Tyreek Hill, like, tiptoeing in his Jordans up the sideline, that was a very lucky play. Like, there's there's some deep issues with the Dolphins here, and it's a little scary when you have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and you just can't get these occasional bursts. It doesn't have to be for a touchdown, but like a 40-yard play. There goes Hill in the backfield, something like that. We saw Tony Pollard have such a gashing play against the Dolphins, and I'm not saying that as a spite to the Dolphins defense because I thought they played well, but it just seems like you're hitting your head against this wall so many times, and it's so crazy that they've just been unable to break through, whether it's Huntley, whether it's Thompson. And Tua week one, that was luck more than anything, man.
Yeah, and I keep telling myself, Javon Holland doesn't knock that ball out. Like, we could seriously be 0-4. Then, how are we sitting here talking? That'd be absolutely nuts. Is it our fault that Tony Pollard had that big game? I mean, was it him or Spears that we said, like, doesn't scare us? I think you, me, and Kat, we were all like, yeah, that doesn't really scare us. And then they just absolutely annihilated us. Jake, last thing before we get off here, I want to ask you, do you think the Dolphins are closer to being ready to buy or sell? I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm spiraling out of control with my thoughts in my head, wondering who the next GM could be. Say, Stephen Ross says, guys, you know what, you're safe. They go out there. Do they start trading away assets to bring in picks? Or do you think this team is much closer to, just burning the whole thing down?
Let me ask, can I answer? I'm going to answer with a question. I'm sorry, Josh. What would be the position you would want to trade for? Is there like one position above all else that you'd want the Miami Dolphins to trade for to improve this football team?
That's a good question. I'd say offensive line, but I don't know that that's where I'd look. I mean, you want another receiver, but you're hoping Odell Beckham? I don't know. I'm sitting here now. I don't even know the answer to that.
I think if you have a decisive answer and you have a plan for that, I think that's if you're a buyer or a seller. Josh, I still see a scenario where here we go. The Dolphins are 1-3, and I still see a scenario that they could be feisty come December. But at the same time, like, you can, I think, trade away a couple pieces. But I mean, even then, man, what are you trying to trade away? Like, you want to get crazy and trade a Tyreek Hill contract? I don't think that's happening in the middle of the season. I don't know who you're looking at on the defensive side, whether it's maybe a Javon Holland, that it would actually make sense. Maybe you try to trade off a Calais Campbell. I don't want any of that happening. So I think the big question is, who are you looking at if you're trying to improve this football team? And then following that up, is a guard really going to make the Miami Dolphins' life so much easier? I'm actually kind of leaning yes. I think one of the biggest issues about this football team, Josh, Jeffrey Simmons was saying on Thursday, I love the matchup of Aaron Brewer against Devondre Sweat. I think we're going to win that. We know exactly what Aaron Brewer is going to do. He's going to just try to get vertically and run up the field. And Devondre Sweat was the best player on the football field. It wasn't even close. He was blowing up plays left and right. If you can sign a guard and you're confident that he can come in and just give you something different, then we can start talking. I think the biggest regret, and Josh, something you bring up, and I put a feather in my cap every time you say it, is like the Adam Gase experience. How does it feel different from the Brian Flores experience? That was different from the Tony Sparano experience. How did we not know that just let's go with more speed? Let's go with more speed. Let's add more speed and trust Robert Jones. How did we not kind of say that might be wrong? Like, how many of the best pitchers of all time had one pitch? Josh, your number one band on Spotify, think about their top like type of music they're associated with. They have songs that are in other categories. Kiss has Beth. My favorite Slipknot song is an acoustic song. Like, we should have seen some sort of issue coming with just let's go with speed.
And I think maybe deep down inside we might have known it was going to happen and backfire on our face, but we just kind of just felt. I mean, it did feel different, right? Like 4 weeks ago, we were definitely coming on here like, okay, this is it. It feels different, but I don't know, man. I try to always go back to you reminding me of that. And I mean, right here is the perfect example, man. It happens like every 3 or 4 years. We're in the same thing and you're reminding me again. So I don't know where the Dolphins are going from here, but I mean, regardless of what they do, right? Whether they're buying, whether they're hopefully, I don't want to say nuke the entire thing because I'm hoping they fight their way back. I mean, Javon Holland said the team rattled off, what was it, like 9 wins back in the Brian Flores area. Like, I'd be okay with it. We're Dolphin fans at heart. We want to see him have success. But if we get a few losses down the road here, I'm ready to just nuke the entire thing. And I think it starts with Chris Greer. And then, you have to do what you got to do with McDaniel. So, again, hopefully we don't get there. But as of now, man, we're definitely trending much closer to that than we ever were a Super Bowl or even a playoff win. And that hurts, man. Hurts a lot.
Does seeing Tyler Huntley go out there for a second straight week, you're facing the New England Patriots, Jake Brisket, craziest stat about the season is the fact that Miami through 4 weeks are 1-2 at home. Like the Miami Dolphins home field advantage, and they haven't really gotten to use that because they've been 2 primetime games. But Josh, just to bring it back, Snoop Huntley, New England Patriots. Where's that on the confidence meter? Come on, as a Dolphins fan, as somebody who's been through this and has also seen some pretty Brock Osweiler games, let me get the full Josh experience, because I get it. There's like the side of like we can be homers and Tua's gonna come back and we'll be great, and there's the other side of it's time to blow it up. We're Dolphin fans. We're gonna finish the season 8-9, and we're gonna like.
Yeah, we are, and I almost feel confident against the Patriots, right? You mentioned Snoop Huntley in the second week. We know the Dolphins are almost due for one. I mean, you're talking me into this again, so I'm pretty confident in this one, and I'm gonna have egg on my face. And then again, where do you go from there if you lose to Jacoby Brisket? And how bad has Jacoby Brisket won it? I don't know, man. We're spinning out of control, but like again, we'll be here, man. We'll be here through the thick, the thin. We'll be here through the good and the bad. Fins up till we die.
Josh, you said it all. Let's take a little break and go through some notes on the defensive side, so stay tuned for that. To build the momentum up following the break, Josh, here's a stat from the one and only Kyle Krabs. The Dolphins conceded 31 points tonight, and 24 of them came on possessions in which the defense yielded 27 or less yards. You mentioned the Javon Holland quote earlier, the idea that this team just needs to stay together, figure out things on offense, because, man, if this offense can score a whopping 16 points a game, this defense means business.
Yeah, and I mean, I hate to say that they played well in these last few weeks, but I felt like the defense was not the issue, at all in this one. I thought he had another stat where he talked about how short the drives were that they also had to sustain, if I'm not mistaken. So it's just something, that the defense really, really has played well in the situation, right? I saw Baldinger throw some shade at Chop Robinson. I don't know if that is really necessary. Did you see it? Did you see him just joke? He's like, I didn't see him. And I'm like, come on, man.
The only reason I saw Chop Robinson, and anyone who wants to call me out on this, AnotherDolphinsPodcast at gmail.com. Josh, were the Titans offensive linemen not pointing right at Chop Robinson, like, let's run this way, and then just running that way and getting 15 yards? Because that's what I thought I saw happening. And that's what I think made the Baldinger, tweet a little funnier.
Yeah, and I mean, we joke about how he's a lot like Jalen Phillips in that regard in his rookie year, but I mean, I don't know if I remember them pointing right at Jalen Phillips to run it down his throat. But yeah, that's not Chop Robinson's strong suit, at least not yet. But bad day for him to play that way.
Tough scenario for Chop Robinson, Josh. That Titans defense really got Titans offense really got rolling on the ground in the second half. But you mentioned it, man. Jalen Phillips, something we're definitely going to have to keep our eyes on. It looked like he got rolled up on. It looked like a knee injury. He came off the field, threw his helmet, came back on the field, and left the game again. Man, like, that was just like such a brutal gut punch for a situation like this where so much is going wrong in this game. And it's just, oh, by the way, Jalen Phillips, that one like beacon of light, of hope, the idea of like, injuries are going to happen, we're going to come back and kick ass. To see that happen, man, that was just like to use Cap's favorite line, like it was that final kick in the nuts.
Yeah, there's no other way to put it. It felt kind of like the last time when he went down. It's just you hope he can come back from that, and you hope it's not nearly as severe as some of those other injuries. But you just hated to see that, and then you wonder what that means for them with Bradley Chubb, right? Maybe Bradley Chubb was hindering on almost being ready, and maybe you wait a little bit, right? Because I can't imagine that Jalen Phillips didn't rush back, right? He definitely rushed back, and hopefully it's nothing more severe.
Last week, we saw Chop Robinson come within inches of blocking a kick. We saw Calais Campbell on Monday night come within inches of blocking a kick. Josh, I see those two plays. I see how this Dolphin season is going, and I just question, dude, when we're talking about all of the Chris Greer issues, all the things that have gone wrong, how do you not pay Andrew Van Ginkel, somebody who's known to actually block? Like, it's so cool to say he almost blocked a kick. Cool. We had someone who did block the kicks right here in South Florida. That's been really bothering me these last few weeks. The idea that Miami chose not to re-sign Andrew Van Ginkel, the idea that you knew what these players are capable of. I understand there are some limitations to Van Ginkel's game that aren't always talked about. I don't think he's a 4-down pass rusher. He's a jack of all trades, a master of none. But one of those jack of traits is blocking kicks. And just seeing Calais, who don't get me wrong. Don't hear what I'm not saying. Calais Campbell has been absolutely awesome. He had 5 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss. 38 years old. He looks like one of the only players on this team who's going out there and showing heart every single play. But man, I just see them getting close, and I'm like, we had somebody for this job. We had that momentum changer, that somebody who can just completely put a game on its head. We had that in Miami and just let them walk away to a team that's 4-0.
Yeah, and I think he's even now playing as isn't he like one of the top rated edge defenders as well? So I mean, it goes back to the old Chris Greer thing and just makes you wonder. During the entire time with the Christian Wilkins thing, I think we talked about how they traded for Bradley Chubb, paid him right away. Traded for Tyreek Hill, paid him right away. How are these homegrown guys? How do they feel? Yeah, when you don't pay your own guys, and like Robert Hunt, they let go. They let Christian Wilkins go. They let Andrew Van Ginkel go, and it's just for what? For what reason? Like you mentioned, man, you knew that we had injuries to Phillips. You knew Bradley Chubb wasn't coming back right away. And your answer was, again, Calais Campbell played very well. We've got some other guys that have played well, but Andrew Van Ginkel's playing out of his mind. And those game-changing plays, those could be the difference, like we saw in week 1. Those game-changing plays could be the difference between, that 1-3 record or, maybe even a 3-1 record.
The kiss of death for me, Josh, was last week during the Seahawks game. The NFL Twitter account was tweeting out Robert Hunt blocking highlights. Miami was losing 24-3 to the Seahawks, and we saw Carolina Panthers Robert Hunt blocking highlights on the timeline. There's so much wrong with this football team. And honestly, Josh, we made it 32 minutes before just saying, like, it's downright frustrating. It's shameful watching this football team. Just like that, I think we've done a good job of not spiraling, and I'm very close to it at this point. But it's just incredible to see the players they paid. And I love Jalen Waddle. I think he's one of the top players. When you can't lean on him just to, have that one big play, when you have Tyreek Hill and you can't lean on him to have that one big play, and you see Robert Hunt blocking highlights on the timeline, that's the type of universe Chris Greer has created for us. That's the type of universe Mike McDaniel has created for us. Jesus, dude. Jesus, it's tough.
And you know what? You're more worried about the offensive line than they are. That's what you got to remember, Jake.
Liam Eichenberg was actually the number 1 rated player according to Pro Football Focus this week for the Miami Dolphins. That's not a good thing whatsoever. Josh, one final stat here before we wrap up. Brian Flores was 22-16 his last 38 regular season games with the Dolphins. 22-16. Mike McDaniel, he is 21-17 in his first 38 regular season games with the Miami Dolphins. He's worse.
I don't know at this point. I'm at the point where we just got to end up, nuking the thing and just starting all over. But we're 4 weeks into the season. We're heading into week 5. Like, I can't feel that way, but it's hard not to feel that way. God damn, dude.
Bill Belichick always said the football season doesn't start until November. Josh, I want us to try. We're going to go back and forth here. I want us to get to 10 nice things about the Miami Dolphins. All right? I'm gonna talk for a couple more seconds to stall here so we can really figure things out. But I think we can do a good job here of 10 things we really like about the Miami Dolphins. I'll go first. We can fail too. If we fail, it's all right. Jordan Brooks is a really fast football player. He's very fun to watch. He had 2 tackles for a loss. And honestly, if this team was 500 or better, Josh, I think Jordan Brooks would be like talk of the town in Miami. He's looking like a stud.
Yeah, I'm all for Jordan Brooks. Now you got me. I'm already stumbling to say something nice. I mean, I was just gonna talk about their colors. Is that? Can I just say they have nice colors? Like, that's where I was going with it.
Aqua and orange is great. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, there you go. There's number 2. They have very nice colors, Jake. I cannot imagine this team with any other colors.
Number 3 is actually, I'm going to follow up number 2. The Dolphins are actually second in the NFL draft order for 2025 right now. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and Tankathon had him taking Mason Graham, and then they came back and took Jalen Milroe, the quarterback for Alabama. And then they ended up updating their stats after the loss, or their rankings, and then they ended up taking like a defensive lineman also in the second round. I was like, damn it, I wanted that quarterback. So, yeah, they had the second pick of the draft, and oh man, it's just we wanted a first round pick this year, but I don't know that we wanted it that way. Man, what I don't know what else to say. We have the best fans in the entire world because let's be honest, man, who can sit here and get their ass kicked time and time again and continue to support mediocrity the way the Dolphin fans can? So hopefully, does that count? Dolphin fans are fans.
Yeah, no, I 1,000%. Dolphin Freaky, I saw her on the broadcast a couple times, and she deserves all the credit in the world because I'd be like Chris Greer hiding my face in the corner. So shout out her for just kind of staying and taking the punches and keeping everyone riled up.
And being
Josh,
the face of it, right? Like she's the literal face of us right now in our sadness, and it's better than us, right?
1,000%. Jalen Ramsey and Zach Sealer, still pretty damn good at football. Combined for 9 total tackles, a tackle for a loss for Ramsey. Despite all the bad contracts that have been given out, like people want to point to that DK Metcalf touchdown a week ago. Jalen Ramsey's been a stud. I think that's what?
Like 5, hopefully 5. I hope we're at 5. Yeah, because we were going back and forth. So 6. I'm going to go with the Dolphins' ability to continue to find those, acorns, so to speak. We also saw Storm Duck pretty much tackle a dude into a dude. He's making plays. He's out there literally starting opposite of Jalen Ramsey. So, I mean, shout out, and Ethan Bonner. We see him out there as well. So shout out to, am I giving Chris Greer credit after nuking the entire thing? I might have been. So that's number 6.
Jason Sanders. 2 for 2 on field goals with a log of 56. Shit, the money sign's there, man. The money sign's there.
I was fist pumping because you just set me up for Jake Bailey, right? He's been playing out of his mind. He's almost brought our undeniable kind of our MVP right now at this point for how much he's been. I don't have any stats.
Dude, I don't know. He was butt. Dude, there was that one drive. The one drive right before half where Miami got 1 yard in 3 plays and then Jake Bailey punted it a whopping 30 yards.
This was a total. I was trying. Okay, so then we botched it right there. Did I just mess up at 8? Sorry, I tried to go with a Jake Bailey. We got to 8. I was trying to say he was MVP worthy. This just makes me more sad, though. I think
that's actually pretty impressive, Josh. That was honestly kind of fun. I'm not gonna lie, trying to get to 8 there. I thought that was a blast.
And we had no idea. You had no idea we were doing that, so that's what makes it even better.
Dude, that's why I love doing this podcast with you, man, because 37 minutes later, I'm still laughing. Thank you all so much for joining another Dolphins podcast. There's a lot of people on X and Twitter going at each other right now. If you want to come and hang out, laugh at us, we're getting some Twitter or some YouTube comments. I know people are riled up. Send us your comments. We're all here for it. AnotherDolphinsPodcast at gmail.com, 560 WQAM on YouTube. If you want some content, it's a little old at this point. Airing of Grievances featuring Jen Forbush kind of still fits now that we're miserable with Chris Greer. So listen to that. We will be back later in the week to talk about this upcoming game against the New England Patriots, whether you like it or not. So stay tuned for that. Thank you all so much for listening. And most importantly, fins up.
Fins up.